As the sun sinks, Gene Hackman, his wife, and one of their dogs were found dead at their Santa Fe home. The most likely cause of death was carbon monoxide poisoning. Gene Hackman's career has been one of the most respected in Hollywood. He played iconic roles that defined an era of cinema and left an indelible mark on the industry. But when Clint Eastwood, himself a legendary figure, said something surprising about Hackman, it sparked a lot of speculation. I had known Clint for a long time, but we had never worked together. He was in a bad mood that day and said, "I don't want to do any more violent pictures. I'm tired of it. I've been involved with." What did Clint say, and how did it shed light on their complicated relationship? Let's look at their history together and what led to this unexpected turn of events. A strange death. Clint Eastwood recently told everyone something about his longtime co-worker Gene that caught everyone by surprise. Hackman, but before we talk about Eastwood's shocking revelation, let's remember the sad news about Gene Hackman. Her death has had a huge effect on the world of movies, and her career spanned decades. Before we talk about Clint's thoughts on his friend and co-star, it's important to think about Gene Hackman. Hackman's history and the hole his death has made. On February 26, 2025, the quiet, sunny town of Santa Fe, New Mexico, was the scene of a sudden tragedy happened when Gene Hackman and his wife Betsy Arakawa were found dead in their home. The bodies were found after a normal wellness check by a worried maintenance worker. A worker who had been in touch with the couple 2 weeks before got worried when he couldn't reach them and called local security. Things quickly got worse when he looked through a window and saw bodies inside the residence. That's when it became clear how serious the situation was, and emergency services were called. Soon after, deputies from the Santa Fe County Sheriff's Department arrived and made the grim discovery. Gene Hackman, the famous actor who had been admired for his impressive body of work, was found dead in the foyer of their home. His wife Betsy was found in the bathroom with her body. Prescription drugs for high blood pressure and thyroid problems were found all over the place. The scene left many people wondering what had happened, especially since Hackman had a history of health problems, reportedly been facing in recent months. The couple's German Shepherd, one of their 3 dogs, was also found lying next to Betsy in the bathroom closet. The other 2 dogs, on the other hand, looked unharmed and were still on the property, which raised even more questions about the timing and circumstances of the deaths. Deputies at the scene said it looked like Gene Hackman had suddenly fallen, and the same thing was said about Betsy. This suggests that their deaths may have happened suddenly and possibly as soon as the investigation started. The Santa Fe County Sheriff's Department quickly ruled out foul play, even though there wasn't a clear cause of death. They then started a thorough investigation into what happened. The fire department tested for a carbon monoxide leak, and the bodies were looked at for signs of poisoning. All of the tests came back negative, leaving the authorities with no clear explanation for the deaths. Preliminary autopsy results did not show any signs of external trauma on either of the bodies. However, there was one important piece of information that would later help explain what had happened. Gene Hack's pacemaker showed that his heart had stopped beating on February 17, 9 days before the bodies were found. This suggested that Gene had likely died before his wife Betsy, and Betsy may have died soon after. Many people were confused by what had happened, particularly since Gene, who used to be very active, had stopped riding his bike a year before and had become friends. And acquaintances had noticed that the actor, who used to be known for having a lively personality, had slowly become more reclusive. Gene and Betsy had stopped having guests over and spent most of their time alone in their home, which was a big change from their former social and active lifestyle. They had become more isolated over time, with close friends said that it was harder to get the couple to interact with other people in the last few years of their lives. It was also known that Betsy, who had always been a strong and fit woman to care of Gene while he was getting worse, she tried to keep him busy and active to keep him healthy, but despite her efforts, his condition seemed to get worse. Betsy's friends said she was a caring wife who did everything she could to keep Gene healthy. They also said she was in good health before she died, which left many people confused. When the news of Gene and Betsy's deaths came out, it shocked the world. Hackman has had a career that goes from Gene, who had stopped acting years before, was a Hollywood icon known for his memorable roles in movies like The French Connection, The Conversation, and Unforgiven. Gene Hackman has built a legacy that will last in the film industry. His journey from a struggling young man to a Hollywood legend was anything but normal, and it's that rawness and unpredictability that made him so famous. The actor's serious, no-nonsense performance on screen earned him praise from both fans and critics, and his recent disappearance from public view had only added to his mystique. Betsy Araki, a former concert pianist who had been Gene's partner for decades, and their relationship was known to be close and loving. Together, they lived a quiet life in Santa Fe, away from the attention that had once been so much a part of Gene's life, fame. Gene had always been private, and his relationship with Betsy seemed to reflect that desire for peace and solitude. After they died, many people who knew them were sad and confused. The couple's quiet lifestyle, their health problems, and the suddenness of their deaths created an air of mystery around their last days. It was clear that Gene had been having health problems, especially in the last year of his life, but no one could have predicted that his death and the untimely death would come in such a quiet and private way. His death marked the end of an era for many film fans, but his legacy would live on through the amazing characters he played. Before we read what Clint Eastwood said about Gene, let's see what other people in Hollywood had to say. Tributes from all over the world. Gene Hackman's death marked the end of an era in Hollywood, and tributes poured in from all over the world recognizing his amazing contributions to the world of film. People were shocked when Gene, his wife, Betsy Arakawa, and their dog died at their home in New Mexico. It didn't take long for people who worked with him and thought of him as a friend to praise his work and express their sadness at his death. One of the first to do so was Francis Ford CPA, the famous director who worked with Gene on the 1974 movie The Conversation. Francis, who had seen how Gene changed the film industry, took to social media to share his thoughts. Francis posted a picture of the two of them on set and wrote about how Gene had a lasting effect on the industry. For Francis, Gene wasn't just an actor, he was an artist whose complexity on screen made people gasp. Francis mourned his death, but he also celebrated Gene's contributions to film, knowing that the actor's work would continue to speak to people for generations to come. Morgan Freeman, another titan of cinema and Gene's close friend, spoke at the Oscars to honor his friend. "We lost a giant in the entertainment industry this week, and I lost a dear friend in Gene Hackman." Morgan. They had been friends for decades, and they had worked together on the screen in Unforgiven and then Under Suspicion. Morgan remembered Gene's humility and his desire to simply do good work, which had shaped not only his career, but also his legacy. As he put it, Gene's work spoke for itself, and his legacy was firmly established. Morgan wasn't the only one who talked about how much Gene's work meant to him. Mel Brooks, who worked with Gene on the famous comedy Young Frankenstein, also talked about the actor's lasting impact. Gene's performance as the blind hermit in the movie showed how versatile he was. Mel remembered how Gene, who was a master of drama, sought out the comedic role at the suggestion of his friend Gene Wilder. For Mel, it was an honor to watch Gene take on the role. Over the San Francisco Bay, the team knew they had done it. Their new voice AI platform wasn't just faster, it was a paradigm shifter. There was a mutual respect between them that was perhaps best shown in Clint's last words about Gene. He was also a dear friend whom Clint will miss very much. Gene's death was a tragedy not only for Clint, but for the whole film community. He was a true giant in the industry, and his absence will be felt for a long time. But Clint, who had seen his share of loss and heartache over the years, knew that the best way to honor Gene was not to mourn the loss. While honoring the life and work of someone who truly left an indelible mark on the world, Clint believed that Gene's legacy wasn't just measured by awards and honors, even though he had many. For Clint, Gene's true legacy lies in the characters he brought to life and how authentically he did so. It was about how Gene could make an audience feel like they were watching not just a performance, but a film. Life happened right in front of their eyes. Gene wasn't just acting. He lived every part he played, making each one unforgettable. As personal and moving as Eastwood's tribute to his friend Gene Hackman was, it served as a reminder of the immense talent Gene brought to the world. The roles Gene played will live on in movie history, but what needs to be remembered is the heart and soul he put into his work, the dedication he showed to his craft, and the humility he maintained throughout his career. Gene was one of the 3 greatest actors of all time, which shows how rare and lasting his talent was. His words about Gene will continue to inspire future actors and filmmakers. Clint's words about Gene have weight that only someone who knew him so well could deliver. They are not a tribute to a fellow actor, but a final farewell to a friend who left an indelible mark on Clint's life, career, and the world of cinema. Clint Eastwood talks about the circumstances of Gene's death. Eastwood, who is known for having sharp instincts on and off screen, thought that the open front door at Gene Hackman's house could mean something more sinister, like an intruder or foul play. Hackman is very private, so Eastwood thought it was suspicious that the door was left ajar, which means that someone may have broken in without her permission. There is a very small chance that he would leave his house unlocked, but Eastwood's comment makes me nervous. Was it just a mistake, or does it mean something? What do you think? Let us know in the comments if you agree with Clint.